January the 2nd, 1990. A man is spotted standing over a woman's naked body on the banks of the Genesee River. She would be the last of this killer's 14 known victims. Tragically, 12 of the victims would be murdered after the killer was released from prison, despite the fact that he had brutally killed 2 children. Let's examine the disturbing case of Arthur Shawcross, the Genesee River Killer. Arthur John Shawcross was born on June the 6th, 1945, in Kittery, Maine. His early life was troubled. He claimed to have been sexually abused by his mother.
My mother, when I was 4, introduced me to something I don't want to talk about in front of you.
Arthur struggled academically and socially, dropping out of high school after failing to pass the 9th grade. In 1963, he joined the army and served a tour of duty in Vietnam, where he claimed to have engaged in violent acts, including cannibalism.
And I took the leg, the right leg from that woman's body, from the knee to the hip, took the skin off, took the cords out, and took the fat off of it.
These accounts have been largely dismissed, as the army claimed Shawcross was not involved in any combat missions in Vietnam. Shawcross's criminal activities began long before he became known as a serial killer. On his return from military duty in 1968, Shawcross was convicted for an arson attack and served 2 years of a 5-year jail term. He was released in October 1971. 6 months later, on April the 7th, 1972, he committed his first confirmed murder. He abducted, raped, and murdered his 10-year-old neighbor, Jack Blake. Shawcross took Jack fishing just a few days before he disappeared, but denied any knowledge of the disappearance. Jack's body would only be found 5 months later. Then, in September 1972, the body of 8-year-old Katherine Ann Hill was found under a bridge. She had been raped and murdered. Shawcross had also been seen with Katherine shortly before her disappearance. He was arrested, and on October the 3rd, 1972, Shawcross confessed to killing both Jack Blake and Katherine Ann Hill, although he was only charged with Katherine's murder. After agreeing to a plea bargain, he was convicted of manslaughter and sentenced to 25 years in prison. But his reign of terror was only starting. After serving 15 years of his sentence, prison staff and social workers foolishly concluded that Shawcross was no longer dangerous. This, despite the fact that psychiatrists had diagnosed Shawcross as a schizoid psychopath. He was released on parole in April 1987. This decision would cost many people their lives. After his release, Shawcross moved to Rochester, New York, where he began the cane spree that would earn him the name the Genesee River Killer. Between 1988 and 1990, Shawcross murdered at least 11 women, most of whom were sex workers. His modus operandi involved luring his victims to secluded areas where he would sexually assault and brutally murder them. The bodies of his victims showed signs of extreme mutilation, and Shawcross later claimed to have cannibalized the genitals of his victims.
One part, vagina, and listen to that.
Shawcross would leave the bodies near the Genesee River and return to the scene of the crime to relive the experience. His victims included Dorothy Blackburn, Anna Marie Stephan, Dorothy Keeler, Patricia Ives, June Stott, Marie Welsh, Frances Brown, Kimberly Logan, Elizabeth Gibson, Darlene Trippi, June Cicero, and Felicia Stevens. The police investigation into the murders was extensive, but it wasn't until January 1990 that they would have a breakthrough in the investigation. On December 31st, 1989, the discarded jeans of Felicia Stevens were found near the Genesee River. Police decided to conduct an aerial search of the surrounding area. On January 2nd, 1990, the search paid dividends when a helicopter spotted the naked body of a woman near the river. The body was not that of Felicia Stevens, but of a missing prostitute, June Cicero. The helicopter also spotted a man standing next to a small van near the body. The man appeared to be masturbating. Shawcross had returned to the scene of one of his crimes to relive the attack. He was tracked down via the car's registration, which was in the name of his girlfriend, Clara Neal. When questioned, Shawcross confessed to the murders and provided graphic details of his crimes. Shawcross underwent extensive psychological evaluation following his arrest. He was diagnosed with several mental disorders, including antisocial personality disorder and borderline personality disorder. Some experts suggested he exhibited signs of psychopathy. His claims of childhood abuse and wartime atrocities were seen as possible contributing factors to his violent behavior, although there was skepticism about the veracity of these claims. In November 1990, Arthur Shawcross was tried for the murder of 10 women. His defense team attempted an insanity plea, citing his history of mental illness and traumatic experiences. However, the jury found him guilty on all counts, and he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Shawcross spent the remainder of his life in prison, where he continued to draw attention from psychologists, criminologists, and the media. He granted several interviews in which he provided chilling insights into his psyche and crimes.
For some reason, I don't have a conscience. I don't have remorse for anything.
Arthur Shawcross died on November 10th, 2008, from cardiac arrest. The case of Arthur Shawcross remains a significant study in the field of criminal psychology and criminology. His life and crimes have been the subject of numerous books, documentaries, and academic studies. Some experts suggest that his claims of cannibalism may not be true. The fact remains that Arthur Shawcross was a cold-blooded, sadistic, and selfish predator who took the lives of others for his own gratification. Arthur Shawcross's story is a grim reminder of the potential for human violence and the importance of vigilance and effective law enforcement. His heinous acts left a lasting impact on the victims' families and the communities affected by his crimes, highlighting the enduring consequences of such atrocities. At a time when many cities are adopting soft-on-crime policies, society should never forget the evil of the Genesee River Killer.